Well, hello there. Good evening and welcome to the program. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you most kindly for joining us. On the program tonight, we take a closer look at a troubling new report by the Big Tent, a coalition of opposition technocrats which paints a grim picture of life in rural Nigeria. The report, presented by its convener, Professor Pat Utomi, warns that over 75% of rural Nigerians are trapped in chronic poverty, with insecurity and economic collapse pushing farming communities to the brink. Well, to help us unpack the data and what it means for Nigerians now and going into the future, we're joined in the studio by Shadow Minister of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development under the Big Tent. Architect Dr. Peter Agada is joining us for tonight's conversation. Architect, thank you so much for joining us on the program. It's good to see you. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure being here.
Right. Some Nigerians are still trying to wrap their heads around this whole idea of a shadow government, right? I mean, we've gone beyond the arguments for or against it, whether it's an academic exercise or not, whether it's actually adding value to the conversation of good governance. But let's talk about this recent revelation or report that the Big Tent is happy on. Some would say, listen, no new facts here for the fact that Nigerians have been living in this reality for quite some time now. What more can you speak to about some of the findings and what we need to spotlight in this conversation around Nigeria's challenge with poverty?
Well, thank you so much once again. Like you said, the Big Tent is a conglomerate of professionals in Nigeria, some of them here and some outside of Nigeria. If you're like me, living in Nigeria, and Nigeria has been good to me, you know. Somebody like me, I started my education in Lagos, where I had free education. In the times where you had the free education, we were given free books, free classrooms. I went to the university at the time where school fees was 19 naira thereabouts. The accommodation in the hostels were free, you know. I lived through a Nigeria that was very wholesome and supported me. And most of us, you know, about this age and time in our experience, have this goodness that this nation has been to us. And all of us doing quite well, quite good in our various places of practice, you know. We feel that we cannot sit down and watch our nation. Most of us in private sector, we can't look at our nation go down the drain like that, a nation that has been good to us. If there's something that can be done from our side, bringing our capacities and capability to play, even if it's just paperwork, even if it is architects like me sit down, produce master plan, produce drawings for Nigeria out of the magnanimity of your heart, okay? And wait for a time where somebody will be able to look at that and see how they can implement this as alternatives, okay? So that is the meaning of the Big Tent, okay? And we've been here forever, not for about 15 to 17 years now. We're known as the Congress of Nigerian Professionals from different fields that are Nigerian all over the world that mean well, that want to do something for their country. We came together and we said, let's look at our nation. Nigeria becomes like the site plan. If I want to speak like an architect, there's a site boundary, 923,000 square kilometers. What do you want to put where? What is the endowment in what location? How can we harness this and make life easy and better for Nigerians? This is the intention. And someone will say we are attacking or we are antagonizing current administration. We're not doing that. Current administrations were part of what we've been doing. I don't want to mention them, but a lot of the members of this current administration, both in the last administration and present, were part and parcel of the Congress of Professionals. Everything we've done today, we presented to them when they were opposition. When PDP was in office and APC was opposition, they had all these documents with them. So nobody's fighting anybody. We are working assiduously to make sure that the difficulties that Nigerians are facing right now are assuaded in one way or the other. That's the purpose of it.
And why, in your view, do you think is the government unable to keep an open mind about some of the views of the Big Tent?
Well, politically speaking, you know, because one of the things that are being said today is that we are looking and x-raying the current administration. And the alternatives we are producing are actually, in quote, contrary. In a way, they are not in congruence with what they're doing. For example, let me give you one clear example. The sector where I lead, the infrastructure sector, we do not agree at all with the principles and the methods being used to drive the Lagos-Calabar Expressway, one of the biggest projects of this administration, for example. We don't agree at all. That should be single-sourced to an individual without the level of due diligence we're expecting, having been a culture of this nation. We don't agree. So when you see positions like that being presented, and positions being presented in health, positions being presented in agriculture that are incongruent or not agreeing, it appears as if we're coming against them, and it looks like it's driven by the coming election or something. It's not driven by election. It's driven simply by the sufferings of the people and how harsh and difficult it's getting by the day.
Right.
Thank you.
And let's talk about some of the recent data that the Big Tent is talking about. 75% rural poverty. I mean, this has been the figure that has been on the rise over the past couple of years. I mean, Nigeria has been the poverty capital a couple of years ago, but we also have some of the biggest in terms of African poverty burden, right? Tell me what this particular data says about the efforts of government at all levels to try to address this one overshadowing metric in terms of the living conditions of Nigerians.
Okay, our data actually come from or are benchmarked against general, conventional, empirical data sources, like the Nigerian Living Standard Survey of 2018 to 2020 or thereabout, which is part of what the Nigerian Office of the Bureau of Statistics provides. Our data are not manufactured. They are from data sources. We get data from the World Bank. We get data from Demographic and Health Survey, DHL 2023, for example. We have satellite-based nightlight data, talking about rural economic activities and its proxy. We have local government and community-based poverty assessments. All right, so our data come from all of these bodies. And then we also outrightly, because the membership of this professional body cuts across the nation. Like I said, we are Nigerian professionals from all over the country and outside of Nigeria. We have members at state levels who give us on-ground data of what is going on in their states, okay? Now, for example, I made mention of the Lagos. I keep coming to that project because if I was to implement that project as a minister of infrastructure, it will be more people-oriented, it will be more people-driven, it will be more Nigerian professionals-driven. I've always said this till tomorrow. There is a principle which this administration and the past will not deny that were presented to them before. In fact, there's a time people will look at me and say, labor direct. That's what they call me. I'm a proponent of direct labor implementation, for example. Now, if these principles had been used to drive that project, professionals across those 7 states where this road passes will be engaged in doing this project. Now, if you engage the guys, for example, in Ogun State, and the law is that you must drive this project based on the professionals in that state. As you move to the next state, professionals in that state, like that. As
developing local content.
And then by the time you know what's happening, your resources will have trickled down to the rural communities.
Are you saying that's not what's happening right now?
That's not what is happening. That's not what's happening in its entirety. All right? So we have a big problem with that. So your question talks about data, and this is how we gather our data. We gather our data from these data-driven organizations. All right? So our key finding, for example, talking about the poverty, based on this data which we've gathered already from this existing data body, shows that Nigerian poverty line was estimated in 2019 to be 137,430 naira per person per year, which comes approximately to $1.20 per day in terms of PPP terms. And it shows that every household per capita in Nigeria and every household that goes below that is termed poor, globally speaking. All right, so these are how we benchmark our data. Okay, how can somebody live with 137,000 naira in a year, for example? And this figure we're talking about is even at 2019. Today, is even below $1 for a household. It's crazy.
Yeah,
right.
And obviously we're also talking about rising income poverty with the 70,000 minimum wage
Yes.
that was recently signed into law. Purchasing power, we've seen, has also greatly diminished, largely because of what's happening on the other side of the equation with rising inflation and things like that. But also, talk to me about your response to people who say, well, data can tell any story that you want that data to tell, right? That this particular data, albeit real, is not telling the entire story, because there's another side of the story, there's another side of the coin that speaks about how government reforms are beginning to take shape. For instance, in the first quarter of this year, the economic growth was recorded at 3.13%. So why is that not something that the Big Tent is reflecting to give a holistic picture of everything good and everything bad with the Nigerian state?
The truth is that the Big Tent is not out to make the Nigerian state look bad or good. The Big Tent is only reflecting realities on the ground. You talk about economic growth coming to 3-point-something%. Let me ask you a question. As a person, do you have family? Do you have relatives? Do you have people that you relate to? Do you move around the country every day? How has this growth in number shown in the lives of the people that you meet on a daily basis? As a person, the number of people that I continue to support as an individual are growing to over 200-300. I'm not talking of those working in my company that I pay salaries. I'm talking about those that just have me in their phone contact and are always talking to me on a daily basis. I pay hospital bills on a daily basis just because somebody said to me yesterday, you are one man whose horn has been established among us all, so we have to all come to you. So these numbers are not reducing. So what growth are you talking about? Where are the growths? What infrastructure can you show me that is all over the place, that is connecting between towns and villages, that is connecting between villages and rural areas, bringing out agricultural produce to the market?
Are you saying nothing is happening, or you're saying whatever is happening compared to the scale of the problem is not enough?
Isn't enough. Isn't at all. It's not enough. We are not wholesome and reaching out to the meat of the challenges of this country. What we're doing is like scratching the surface. I don't want to put a total blame on government. I have a belief. My ministry is titled the Ministry of Infrastructure, but my project is titled Enterprise-Driven Infrastructure Nigeria. Nigeria needs to go the way of enterprise-driven infrastructure right now.
Explain what you mean by that.
Enterprise-driven infrastructure is infrastructure that is built around production.
Right.
All right? My concept, or our concept in the Ministry of Infrastructure, for example, is, for example,
maybe you should add Shadow Ministry of Infrastructure.
The Shadow Teams Ministry of Infrastructure.
Right.
The Shadow Teams Ministry of Infrastructure. I don't even want to use the word government. It's not necessary.
Right.
We're a shadow team. We're just a team that is mirroring and echoing what should be, or alternative solutions. For example, we have endowment-driven new town development. That's one project we have. We want to put across the nation. You go to Zamfara, they have solid mineral. You go to this solid mineral belt and develop new urban settlements around the development of minerals in that area. It provides the housing they need. Housing is one big challenge in Nigeria. Big challenge. In working with the Federal Mortgage Bank at a time when I was developing housing, the Federal Ministry of Housing gave me 200 off-takers, for example, to build them houses. By the time I took their names, the salary structure to Federal Mortgage Bank, only about 16% qualified out of 200. That was about 32 persons. What led to that disqualification? Because our income level cannot pay our mortgages in Nigeria. It's a big problem. That's why housing is not working. But we have a solution to housing in Nigeria. Apart from the change in technology for construction, we want to build new cities around endowments. Are you getting? Now, the guys living in that new city will have a job tied to their housing, and this job will pay their mortgage easily. Now, we connect between these cities with new roads, with refurbished roads. If the cities are by existing roads, we connect them, we refurbish these roads, and then you connect production centers, raw material processing centers to production centers with new roads. And by doing that, you have developed a totally new architecture for Nigeria. Where will the money come from? The money will come from a plethora of places. It doesn't have to be driven by government. Government should only provide enabling environment, legal and regulatory framework. We keep saying that till tomorrow.
You're saying this is doable because theoretically you can prove it, or because this is something that has been implemented elsewhere?
In fact, it happens all over the world. China, India, most countries in the world have developed that way. Israel and the rest of them. My principal has actually tried this on a pure private sector basis and has recorded quite some challenges, according to him, for many reasons, which of course government is directly responsible. For example, he has land somewhere between Benin and Warri, somewhere in the center of the bush, okay, 20 hectares of land. He's planned a production center where farmers will bring their raw products there. It will be processed, added value, and then exported. But till today, he has not been able to take off because his land is in the middle of the bush. There's no title. He cannot use that land to get his finances, for example. So this is a government policy problem. It's not Professor Pat Utomi's challenge. Utomi he meant well. He's availed his land. His land does not have the proper title to be able to get him the funding. So you see, government needs to do some little tweak here and there. What is wrong with making land in the rural area available to sell? Just little tweaks to your policies here, and you have funding flowing in those directions. Assuming my uncle in the village, who has over 100 hectares of land, can convert that hectare of land to his capital. You know what kind of finances are going to flow in that direction for projects? You know how many private sector, both local and international partners will come and farm with him and produce that Bambara nut that comes out of Otukpa, my hometown. But because there's no credit, you can't turn that land to credit. This is government policy. This is not, there's nothing my uncle can do about that.
A lot of opportunities yet to be unlocked, basically.
Yes, of course.
Right. We've seen this poverty map before. It has only grown in terms of size or scale.
Yep.
Much of it is in the north, northwest and northeast. Also, there's a correlation between the rising rural poverty that we're seeing with insecurity, because much of these communities are agrarian communities, if not all of them are agrarian communities. What in your report suggests, what is happening in that area? Because the government will have the people believe that it is making a lot of gains, inroads in terms of its pushback against banditry or insurgency and the likes. What is your report telling you about what is actually happening on the ground?
Well, our report on what is happening on the ground shows an improvement, no doubt. The administration has done quite some work. Like we said earlier, it's not enough. What needs to be done needs to be much more compact, much more robust in its delivery. And then I think the government needs to come back and look at some of its master planning documents. I actually find it very difficult to see them following any particular
you don't see a strategy? You don't see a pattern?
I see it on paper.
Right.
I see it on paper. In fact, I wrote down some of them here. But how these documents, how these papers, I'm seeing here, I'm seeing in the present government, I'm seeing a lot of it. I've taken them down here, for 220 million Nigerians. I don't see this robust. I see a social investment program, NSIP, okay, which was introduced in 2016. All right. Under this, you have the Empower, Employability, Skill Development of the Youths. Where is that impacting people? I come from a village too. I go to my hometown literally every 2 to 3 months. Okay. I don't see that. I don't know anybody. In fact, I think it's even the things that I do as a person that are looking like what the government is doing in my place. I see conditional cash transfer, CCT. I see government enterprise and GEEP, microcredit for small businesses. I own a small business. I own one. I don't know about you. I don't see anywhere where anybody is looking at coming in to me, calling me to come and see how we can work together. I don't see that. We have homegrown school feeding programs. Okay? Meals to encourage children in attendance. I don't know about that anymore. Okay? We have anchor borrowers program. There are so many things this administration has done. I don't want to totally discount it at all. It might be having its reach, but the overall effect on our nation it's not looking like somebody.
A drop in the ocean.
Yes.
As far as you're concerned.
It's not looking like somebody's doing enough.
All right.
Yes.
Let's zoom out a little bit, right? Because sometimes people can get inundated by local problems or domestic problems so much so that they forget about what is happening across the region, on the continent, or even at the global stage. So what do the figures, what does the data show as far as regional empirical evidence or available data around poverty level? Let's have a quick look at that. Okay, so multidimensional poverty, 63% in Nigeria, give or take. At the ECOWAS level, so this is our regional bloc, right, where Nigeria is a major player, it's at 49%. And at the global level, 29%. Rural poverty in Nigeria, 75%. At the ECOWAS level, the average is 68%. So still something significant across the region, and you could tie it down to a couple of factors, right? Because we share some common denominators in terms of challenges. Well, the global average is about 50%. It has 55% according to the 2024 data. Youth unemployment at 41%. The ECOWAS average is at 35-14, the global average, which is quite a stark difference. And of course, food inflation, which I believe is what most people are concerned about on a day-to-day basis. The highest at 33% in Nigeria, 24% is the ECOWAS average, and 10% is the global average. There's a sense that globally the economy is not doing well. But what does the data show about how Nigeria is lagging behind metric by metric?
Yeah, so for me, what we say here is that the challenges in government response are coming primarily because, number one, corruption and political patronage. They are one of the things that are hindering government effort. We're not saying that there's no effort by government, but of course, they say corruption is everywhere. But in the Nigerian situation, we are, I don't know if it's deliberately refusing to systematize our approach to solving this problem. So there is a particular Nigerian factor that is making the Nigerian situation not even out, even with the West African, like the data you are showing me there right now, where we are worse than the West African average. It's not supposed to be at all. With the wealth of resources and the intellectual capability and capacities that Nigeria has, we have no business existing below the West African average benchmark. It shouldn't be heard about at all. So one of the primary challenge in government responses to sorting all of this data I'm seeing here is corruption and political patronage. It's a big issue. I come back again to the Lagos Calabar. I don't want to use the foul language, but why are we using one contractor to handle that kind of a project? It becomes white.
Is it unheard of?
For the African subcontinent, it's not correct.
For the Nigerian example, for instance, have we never given one contractor a 15 trillion naira contract?
Is it heard of? Is it heard of? There was a time Julius Berger was working in the Federal Capital Territory under the military administration. Something close to that happened, but not at this time. We believe that the wealth and the finances of a nation can only trickle down to the people when you engage the people. You don't take a man who is, or a group of people who are non-Nigerians, okay? I don't want to mention name, and they sublet these contracts to another non-Nigerian company who is not even in the infrastructure or road construction industry. A generator company, for example, handling a subcontract it's unheard of. So things like that, we consider things like that not conventional, and there was no due diligence, no due process, nothing. Anyway, let me keep that aside. The next issue is poor data and weak targeting. It excludes a lot of people from development in this country, okay? It excludes a lot of people, mainly the poor and what we call now vulnerable in society, the female, the women gender in different parts of our country. Thirdly, fragmented coordination across federal and state levels is another thing. So you see, insecurity is another thing. So all of these things put together has really, really hampered Nigeria's ability to be able to unearth what God has naturally given to us, just basic food.
Right.
Yes.
And let's just go back to to the data that talks about the problem year on year, looking at the West African average and the global average. Well, you look at that from 2022 to 2025. You look at the trajectory, steadily at over 40%. Right, we went from 40.1% in 2022 to the current, poverty rate of 43.0% in 2025. Right, and you look at, the ECOWAS average also going up well over 33% in 2022 to 35%, but a marginal 1 to 2% increase over the course of 3 years, where in Nigeria you have also similar, almost a 3% increase from 2022 to 2025. But here's the thing. The global average is actually coming down from 8% to about 7.4% in 2025. While the rest of the world is, gaining some traction in reducing poverty, ours is steadily going up. Yeah. But the president, the administration has been saying, listen, whatever it is that we're doing with these reforms, it will bear fruit in no distant future, right? Nigerians just have to be patient. We're going to make all the sacrifices. What, in your view, is, your take about the narrative of the administration and why it doesn't inspire you to believe that the solution is just around the corner?
We are all scientists and statisticians. In my primary elementary mathematics, I learned how to plot the graph, the y-axis against the x-axis, and a factor in the x affects y, and then you put your x, you mark. If you plot the graph of what the policies, the programs of this administration is driving, I do not see that graph showing that level of progress that is being said. If you keep projecting based on what we're seeing today, except if there's something else they have in the policies.
You don't see the magic.
I don't see it. I don't see, as a person. Right. I am pure private sector practitioner. I just finished a project where we resulted in importing literally everything that we needed to use, and the next project coming cannot afford materials. In fact, projects are, the industry where I come from is the worst hit industry in the history of this nation. We have never seen anything like this. A colleague of mine was saying today that we have all been turned to draftsmen and beggars.
Talk to me about this, because we've been hearing this particular concern simmer over the past couple of years, that contractors are still unpaid and things like that. How bad is it?
It's not even the matter of contractors being unpaid alone. It's the fact that you don't even have construction projects going on anymore. In those days, when I came to Abuja 28 years ago, individuals, development was all over the place. You looked at the skyline in the city and you saw cranes all over the place. Do you see them anymore? The infrastructure around the city have remained literally the same. Districts are not expanding.
I'm sure the Wiki administration will have something to say about that, but
Wiki
continue.
administration is finishing what the last administration commenced. Where are the new districts? Why is the cost of housing skyrocketing? I used to live in a place where I came in with 3 million naira per year, for example. It's 9 million today. Why is the building in one place and the cost increasing? It's because we are not having new cities. We are not having new districts expanding. It's not about finishing one bridge here and the other bridge there that was started by the last administration. Where are the new ones? Where's the master plan of Abuja? Which stage are we in the development of the master plan? These are the things we look at.
Yeah, and talk to me about that, because recently the conversation around national development, especially from regional lenses, has become top news, where the past governor of Kano State, made the allegation that the administration is not necessarily prioritizing the north in terms of infrastructural development, blah, blah, blah. And the administration countered by saying, listen, look at what we're doing here and here, railway projects here and there. And a point has been made about, it being a continuation of a project that has, started, a couple of years ago. But isn't that what government is about?
Yeah, government is a continuum. That's the principle and that's the policy. But year in, year out, we produce budgets, not only to continue from where the past administration stopped, but to spread in and develop new areas. So why are we budgeting for new areas and we are not seeing these new areas? Why are we budgeting for new projects and we're not seeing these new projects? That's the concern, really. And these things that are being budgeted for, are they not meant to, like you said, be part of the solution, be part of reducing the tension? And why is the tension not reducing? These are the challenges we're having. Right. That's why we go clicking on, looking for data. We're trying to find out what the problem is, really.
Right.
Yeah.
And talk to me about your end game. What is the objective here? I mean, clearly you said, you're trying to add value to the governance process.
Yes.
You're trying to provide alternative options or ideas about addressing some of these structural issues. Is there a handshake? Has there been a handshake between what the big tent is doing and the people in power? Are you having a conversation, or are you just talking to Nigerians and not necessarily the people in power?
I know that my principal is, how I met him. I met him as a leader in the shadow team back then, 2010, of a team that had himself, Nasir El-Rufai, Obi Ezekwesili, Mr. Donald Duke, Pastor Tunde Bakare, and many other top Nigerian professionals who, when I look at the array of people running this country today, I see all of them as part of the same people. So I don't think that they are enemies of a sort. I think that these are people just having a debate about which way forward about Nigeria. And like Mr. Patutomi said about 2 weeks ago during the retreat, the solutions we have on our paper right now is available to the current administration. We're just here to provide alternative. It's the cry of saying, look, this is another way forward. Let's support what you were doing. He did not go all out to describe the state of the nation he did 2 days ago to run down the administration. He's saying, for example, he said, can we remove this Band A thing? It's causing more poverty in the nation. It's not because he wants Band A to go off, because he's against the administration, because he thinks that we could have other ways of doing this. See, the shadow team is about providing alternatives. We want this alternative submitted. When I met Professor Tommy and we made presentation, I made presentation to him and a lot of other senior members of inclusive of the late president who just passed. Peace be to his soul. All right? And they looked at it. I remember very well when I saw the APC, the first APC manifesto. A good number of information on infrastructure was taken from the submission of the shadow government to that administration. So why can't we keep doing the same?
So does it surprise you now that the APC in power is behaving differently from the APC that was in opposition?
Like I said, I'm a private sector man, and sometimes I see a lot of things in this nation that baffles my understanding. But it doesn't deter me from continuing to do the good things that I want for Nigeria. It baffles me that Professor Utomi, who was behind a dancing president one day, today is seen as if he's the enemy of the president. It's baffling. It's baffling.
And what is the response like? What is the feedback? I asked the question about whether there's been a handshake, whether they're receptive, whether they're open-minded about it. I mean, it's ideas. You want to do it this way, the government in power wants to do it the other way. Do you get a sense that there is a coalescing taking place in terms of your ideas, or are they just non-receptive?
I think two. Let me be fair to the current administration. We have not yet extended that hand, for example, the infrastructure master plans we have. For example, we haven't said to the current Minister of Works, Transport, Housing, and all of those sectors under it, that here is a paper, for example. What we've done so far is to put this paper together and in some time, very, very shortly, send them copies and invite them to our forums so that we can have that interchange between the professionals in service and those of us who are out service here, trying to find other ways of solving the problem. So we are looking at that meeting points shortly. For now, we're just letting them know that, look, we are documenting alternatives to this thing. We are also trying to make this way of life, where you have a shadow team, a permanent one. It's happening in different countries, even in Africa. In South Africa, there's a standing shadow team made up of all ministers of all the. It's meant to be a way of life, so that voice never stops. It's a voice of support. It's a voice of correction. It's a voice of partnership, and it's a voice of gathering together from inside government and outside government to make Nigeria a great nation. Nothing more than that. It's driven by sheer patriotism and love for country.
Well, it's safe to say that the secret police or the federal government doesn't think that that's what's happening. Clearly, there's whole litigation going on around the existence of the shadow government itself. Does that in any way discourage you about, the end game here, the main objective, or trying to provide alternative ideas and keeping government in check? Basically, does this, whole litigation process discourage you from?
We've been in court twice. I think the word being argued about is the word government. Nobody is fighting us for calling ourselves the shadow team. In fact, before I became the shadow team, I led a group of Nigerians called the Congress of Nigerian Professionals. Okay? There are different ways that name come out. It comes out as a team of Nigerians, concerned Nigerian professionals. There are many names. Now, we're calling it shadow because we are, at this point in time, deliberately working side by side with everything that government is doing, almost like a mirror to mirror, The argument right now is ongoing. We've been in court twice, thereabout. Ozekome is doing a great job trying to make sure that government is comfortable. Don't be afraid. It's just, the name is legal. It doesn't, there's nothing in the Constitution that says that we can't call ourselves a government. I mean, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. So we're looking at all that. We don't mind not being called government. In fact, during our retreat, it was called the Shadow Team Retreat. We took out the government just for the sake of peace. I do not think those that really understand what we're doing are threatened by it at all. I think it's politics. Like I said, I'm not a politician. I'm not a card-carrying member of any political party. Most of us are not, by the ways. We are not card-carrying members of any political party. We just mean well for our nation. We want this country. I'm 54. I've been practicing architecture for 30 years. And I'm going to retire. I'm supposed to be looking at retirement. Right. Am I going to leave this nation without an impact on my nation, with all I know, with what I do? That's what all of us are feeling.
There are a lot of people watching the program right now. They say, listen, man is by nature a political animal in some way or the other, right? That you might not be a card-carrying member or actively partisan individual, but you may have political sentiments. Well, that on one side. You also did talk about how some people within the group are not necessarily politicians, right? But you also have some politicians within your midst.
Yes, of course.
That is obviously a fact.
Yes.
Talk to me about, when people are trying to connect the dots between what you're doing and the politics of the nation, right? Where there's this coalition that is looking like, the owner, so to say, of what is happening with the big tent. Safe to say, similar to what's happened between your relationship and the APC before 2015.
Yeah.
Would people be wrong to draw certain conclusions?
Yeah, you're right to say that a good number of the members of the big tent have political ambition and political inclinations and ideologies. But if you look at our document, if you look at our founding document and our aims and objective, it is not politically driven. Of course, with what we're saying, just because we're providing alternatives to a system that looks tough, we are looking like the bride, the beautiful bride now for several political groups. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't deny that. But that doesn't change the core values and the core principles of who we are and what we stand for. The truth is this: if this current administration approaches us today and says, come, let's look at these alternatives, we'll be very fast to do that. So it's not about a new incoming or coalition or whatever. If Alhaji or the president, BAT, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, walks up today to me and says, hey guys, come, can we put the drawings on the table? Put your master plan, let's put ours, and let's rub shoulder. We will be there in the next minute. I can tell you that for sure. So if you walk into this room We are a room of solution. We are open. We are without fence and without wall. If you walk into us, whoever you are, and you have capacity or you have something in your hands that can impact the land for this stress and this pain to be alleviated, will we work with you?
And in talking about, this issue around rising poverty in Nigeria, right? Beyond just what the data shows, do you have any recommendations about what a solution should look like?
Of course.
In addressing those?
Of course. Let me tell you the first thing to do to address poverty in Nigeria. Change the laws on land immediately.
The Land Use Act?
Yes. Immediately.
What about it is fundamentally wrong?
Okay, I have land. Okay, I live in Abuja, but I am the first son of a very big man in the village. He's late now, and he left me land, big land in the village. I'm an architect, and I could do quite a lot with that land. But I don't have all the money to do what I need to do with the land. But if my land has a title that's recognizable by the banks, I can take that land as collateral, and I will raise funds to do what I need to do and pay off the bank and then develop myself. Do you know what that does to me and the number of people that will affect handling that project? So the first, from my point of view, to change the situation in Nigeria is to affect the titles that we have in our land. Is the first, 70% of Nigerians, they say, are in the rural area, right? And most of these people have one little place or the other. If that land, you can put beacons on them, give them a title deed plan, do you know what that will do to them? You can't believe what that will do to them, economically, even socially and the rest of them. So land is a big challenge. Even in the midst of all of these things, we're talking about developing, new cities and working with rural farmers and all that. Their land becomes the first challenge. Once you have land that has value, the infrastructure to get to that land will easily come, because infrastructure follows value. You don't build infrastructure on nothing. That is why we don't have so much of it in the north. We have vast land, but we don't have proper infrastructure, because you don't build it on nothing. If there is title to all our lands across this nation, you will see the infrastructure follow it neatly.
What about the linchpin to the big conversation around Nigeria's unending challenges, economically speaking, which is insecurity? Because you talk about rural poverty, for instance.
Yeah.
Insecurity has become the bane
Yes.
of the underdevelopment, of the risks to life and livelihood of people, especially across the northern part of the country, right? With Boko Haram insurgency,
Yes.
which is in its second decade now, with banditry in the northwest, north central, and other parts of the country, it has become a wildfire. What about the area of insecurity there?
Yes.
Where, you can have your opinions, but the government has monopoly over security, doesn't it?
Yes, of course. The government has, security is directly on the top list of the federal government. And being someone who has also at some point worked with the military, I was born into the military family, I wouldn't say there's anything wrong with the military. I would say there's, again, like I said, just some little tweak here and there. And our military is one of the best in the world. See their performance outside Nigeria, for example. If you see the way the Nigerian military performed during peacekeeping services and all that, you will ask a question. So why is it that when they come back home, there seems to be this challenge while here? So the issue is right here. It's bordered on what I mentioned earlier. It's corruption, okay? I don't want to say so much, I'm on air, but I worked with the military in the development of the Nigerian Armed Forces C4ISR network, the network for military surveillance, reconnaissance system. And during the course of a proof of concept, I saw things that I'm not permitted to say on air, but I know that all of this is tied to the same thing, the Nigerian factor. But again, if our land are given its right value by just government policy, I believe that the poverty in the land is what is triggering the insecurity. They are connected. Once poverty is addressed, insecurity will go down. That's our belief.
Obviously, there's a huge correlation between insecurity and rising poverty.
Huge.
But what about what is happening at the subnational level? Because there's this hyper focus on the federal level, on the Tinubu administration, on any administration for that matter, at the center, to fix all of these problems, right? Take, for instance, last month, the Federal Account Allocation Committee, distributed 1.81 trillion naira. That is huge money that could, transform some of these structural problems, yes. Right? And the 36 states of the Federation got a huge chunk of it. The lion's share, if you add, the 120 billion naira that the oil-producing states got, yes. As part of derivation, right? Yeah. If you add that to the 607 billion naira, yeah. They got from that chunk. Where is the focus on the subnationals and the local councils, right, to doing the needful? Because there are teachers and other professionals who are earning less than the minimum wage, right? Yeah. I mean, doctors are threatening to go on strike now. Yeah. 30 of them have decided to leave one of the states in the north. And we know that this is what's happening across several other sectors. Where is the focus on the subnationals and the 30 of government to how their roles also add to the problem that we're discussing?
Is the disbursement coming from the federal, does it get to the local government areas? That's the first question you want to ask.
Well, on paper it does.
Yes, but does it get to the local government areas? That's the question. So we think and we know that it doesn't. We don't want to get into the details of why, but we know it doesn't. That's one. And then secondly, it's upon what are they disbursing this money, really? What's the plan? There was a time we did full detailed work for Zamfara state government. And we produced a master plan for the city of Gusau, even onto the local government areas, Talata Mafara, the big dam, Bakalori Dam, the agricultural systems around there, how it connects to Talata Mafara, the tomato centers and all of that. We produced this plan for all the local governments in Zamfara state. We called it ZCODEP, Zamfara Integrated Development and Economic Clusters, ZCODEP, that's what we called it. It was developed by the shadow government, anyways, and presented. We did that. We do that for state. The shadow government is not actually just a federal thing. It has
state structure
and local government solutions, for that matter. State by state, 774 local government solutions. Every local government has something that God has given in Nigeria. That's how blessed this country is. Now, if you had a ZCODEP, for example, as the driving project for Zamfara state, and the local government has a master plan on how it wants to implement in phases, short, medium, and long-term implementation strategy. And you're talking about federal government or international funds coming in directly to the local government to drive those projects. Then we have something. But that is not the system that this country is driving. Again, it goes down to the same thing I mentioned, corruption. The system is so opaque. It's opaque. It's not transparent. We can't see it. And then thirdly, it's not driven by the people themselves. It's not. I can tell you that for sure. I have friends, I have architects from Gusau, from Zamfara State. They don't know what is going on. One or two of them may be close to government house, maybe, but it's not people driven.
Best case scenario, architect, how do you see your involvement with the Big Tent in its second decade now? How do you see it impacting not just the governance process, but conscientizing the citizenry to understand, the big picture of how government is supposed to serve them?
Yes. In the future, we have a very solid information and national orientation team headed by, of course, my friend Nana Kazauri and Charles Odibo. These people are going to take the granular informations that we're producing ministry by ministry and feed it to Nigerians using every means possible, social media, just to wake Nigerians up. This is what it should be like. We'll paint the picture. I had done this before under my ministry. We produced 3D animation models of what the gas pipeline should look like, on what the industrial parks should look like, on how we located them. By the way, as in real-time locations, produced animation. Just imagine you playing this in a local school, to a child in Talata Mafara. This is what your place is, animated. And he sees the kind of tomatoes that can come out of that place. And you make curriculums out of things like that. You start producing schools based on the endowment in the area. I'm going to school in Makurdi, for example, and I know that my education is tied to the agriculture and the possibilities in Benue. And I animate this thing. I put it in video form so that everyone who looks at this can catch a glimpse of what his future can be and plug themselves. Right. So this is the direction of on one hand, okay, right, educating and bringing these images live to the upcoming Nigerians that are coming up, so that a new generation can come to Nigeria that sees the nation differently from the way we see it today. All right.
Architect Peter Agada, thank you so much for an interesting conversation.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you very much for stopping by.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad I came.
Right. I appreciate you very much for stopping by.
I'll be available any other time you want us to come. And I'm sure members of the Shadow team are always ready to come and talk and let people see what this thing is all about. Nobody is fighting government. We are part of government. We were part of them when they were in opposition. They can check us out. Right. So today, they are in power. We are still the same people. We still mean well. We want to work with them. We want to see that Nigerians stop suffering. That's all. Right. That's what it is.
I guess the bottom line is the Big Tent is operating in good faith.
Yes,
There's also something said about, having a taste of your own medicine. Sometimes you don't like how it tastes. Yes. Anyway, that's our show for you tonight. Thank you most kindly for joining us. Daily Politics returns tomorrow live and exclusive on Trust TV. I'm Abdullahi Ahmed. Thank you for your time. We'll see you soon.